Welcome back to another crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK, and today I'm sharing with you the Fearful Square from the In the Mood project, or In the Mood Granny Square blanket. Now this square features a very special stitch for me. It's the extended half double crochet, and we're also going to be working into the third loop because that gives us that beautiful raised square around our project, and I think you'll agree that it looks fabulous in both a solid colour and in a self-striping yarn. The materials that I'm using is going to be the self-striping yarn for this project, and that is this Hayfield Spirit double knit, the same as a size 3 yarn. It's a 80% acrylic, 20% wool mix, and this is shade number 0408, which is Sundown. Has a lovely long stripe of colour change, which makes it really good for granny squares and those kind of projects. I am using the recommended hook size for this yarn, which is a 4mm crochet hook. It's just one of my old favourites that I dragged out of the cupboard. You're going to need a pair of scissors and a darning needle to weave in those ends. I do need to get better at getting my ends done. If you're not familiar with the In the Mood project, you can find out all about it in the link in the description box, where you'll be able to download your very own mood tracker to know which square you need to make depending on which mood you experience each week for 52 weeks. And then we're going to create a blanket square for each of those weeks to join them together to create our very own In the Mood project. Gather your materials and let's get straight into making this fearful square. We're going to start by making a slip knot and placing that onto our hook. We are then going to make a chain of 4 by yarning over and pulling through 4 times. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to slip stitch to the first chain that we made just by inserting our hook, yarning over, pull through and straight through the loop on our hook, and that's going to create a really nice secure ring for us to work our project into. So we're going to work into that hole in the middle, not the one that we made while doing our slip stitch, and we start by making a chain of 3. So we yarn over, pull through 3 times. That's 1, 2 and 3. We're going to work a further 2 double crochets into the center of this ring, and at the same time I'm going to hold my tail around the side of my project and work over that as we work around. So we yarn over, going into that center of the ring, yarn over to bring our loop up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now this beginning chain 3 that we made does count as our first US double crochet, and we've just made a second US double crochet. We're going to make a third working into the middle of that ring, bringing our loop up, pull through 2, pull through 2. To make our first corner, we're going to make a chain of 2. So we yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through. We're then going to make our next block of 3 double crochets. So we yarn over the hook, insert back into the center, making sure we're still working over our tail, bring our loop up, pull through 2, pull through 2. That's number 1. Do that for a second time and for a third time. So we have 1, 2 and 3. We then make our chain of 2 for our corner and repeat it again to make the next block of 3 double crochets. That's 1, 2 and number 3. So we have 2 corners. We need to make our third by making that chain of 2. And then if you're running out of space to work into, you can just bring your stitches out of the way and work back into that centering again, working 3 double crochets. I'm still working over my tail. So that's 2 and number 3. Just need to make our final corner. So we make a chain of 2, and then we are ready to join to the top of that chain 3 that we made at the beginning. So there's chain 1, chain 2, there's chain 3. I'm just going to insert my hook through the middle of it, and that will allow me to pick up 2 loops of my chain, pull through and straight through the loop on your hook to join. So at the end of round 1, you will have a total of 12 US double crochets and 4 chain 2 spaces. Round 2, we begin with making a chain of 2. Now this chain 2 does not count as a stitch, so we're going to work into the same space that we joined, which is just there, working a US double crochet, because that chain 2 did not count as a stitch. And then we're going to work into the top of the next stitch. You see mine's slightly distorted because of the way that I've joined. So I'm yarning over, making sure I insert my hook through both loops of the stitch to make that second double crochet. And then we need to work into the top of the third stitch, which brings us to our corner. In our corner, we are making 2 double crochets. So that's number 1 and number 2. We then make our chain of 2 to maintain that corner shape before working a further 2 double crochets into that same chain 2 corner space. And that's number 2. Now that first stitch we need to work into is there just to the side and the back of that stitch. So it's really important that you may find that you can't see where to insert your hook. So just move your corner out of the way and it will be that first stitch just to the side of the post of the stitch. And once again, we're working 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's number 1, there's number 2, number 3, and then we're back to our corner again. Into the corner, we are working 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and a further 2 double crochets. That's 1 and 2. Repeating, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Remember to find that first stitch so you don't miss out and change your stitch count. This is number 2 for me, and there's number 3. And then we're back to our corner once again, where we are working 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and a further 2 double crochets into that same chain 2 corner space. Going to repeat this for a final time, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, and 3. Then into the final corner, we're working 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and a further 2 double crochets. We're then ready to join our second round. We skip that chain 2, and we're joining into the top of the first stitch that we made, going underneath both loops of the stitch, and then slip stitch to join. At the end of round 2, you should have a total stitch count of 28 double crochets. You should also have 4 chain 2 spaces that's creating your corners as well. Going into round 3, we begin with a chain of 1, and that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. We're then going to work 1 half double crochet into each stitch across to the corner. So for a half double, we yarn over, insert into the same stitch as where we joined, yarn over, bring a loop up, should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're yarning over, inserting into the next, bring up so you have 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3. And we're working a US half double crochet into each stitch across to the corner. So at this point, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half double crochets. Into the chain 2 corner space, we are going to work 2 half double crochets, a chain of 2 to maintain that corner space, and a further 2 half double crochets. That's 1 and 2. Just like before, that first stitch can absolutely disappear. You just pull your corner to the side, you'll find the top of that stitch, and that's where we need to be working. So See that little hole there? Not that one. We need to work into this one first. So we yarn over, insert, and once again we are working a half double crochet into each stitch across to our corner. So we should have 1, 2 in the corner, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 so far, and then we're working into the chain 2 corner space, working 2 half double crochets, which gives us 11 half double crochets on each side of our square. For the remainder of that corner, we make our chain of 2, and then we complete the corner working 2 half double crochets, and we're just going to repeat this all the way around our square, working 1 half double crochet into each stitch across to our corner. We work 2 half double crochets, a chain 2, and a further 2 half double crochets into that chain 2 corner space, and then we are ready to continue on. And I will meet you once you have worked, and I'll meet you once you've worked your final corner space. I just have my final 2 stitches to work into. Once again, that was hidden underneath my corner. So there's 1 and 2, and then we're going to join to the top of that first half double crochet that we made. So there's our slip stitch, there's our chain 1, which is really tiny now. I don't know if you can see that. So there's our slip stitch, we ignore that, that's not a stitch. There's our tiny chain 1, and then this is the stitch that we're going to join into. Hope you can see that well enough. We just insert our hook underneath both loops of that first stitch that we made and slip stitch to join. So at the end of round 3, you should have a total of 44 half double crochets, 11 on each side, and you should have 4 chain 2 corner spaces. So going into round 4, we start with our chain of 1, and we're going to be working into the 3rd loop of the stitch from the previous round. If you've never worked into the 3rd loop before, we normally work under both loops of our first stitch because that chain 1 doesn't count, but instead we're going to work into the 3rd loop, which is at the back of our project in this case. So there's our 3rd loop. So you can't see it from the front, and what's going to happen is that the unworked stitch, the first 2 loops of your stitch, will pull forward. So you almost need to have to tilt your project so you can find that back loop or the 3rd loop of your stitch. So we've done our chain 1. You can turn it if you want to find this first one. So there's our stitch at the front here. We'd normally go in underneath our stitch, but instead we're going to yarn over our hook and go under this 3rd loop here. It's a bit hard to find that first one, so I always give it a turn and just pick up that 3rd loop. We then yarn over, bring our loop through, but we're not doing a half double crochet, we're working an extended half double crochet. So once we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and just pull through that first loop on our hook. It'll be a little bit tricky. Once we've pulled through just that first loop, you'll see that there's a loop around your first loop, and then we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So we're not going under our stitch, we're going into the 3rd loop. So we yarn over, you can fold your stitches out of the way if you want to, and just pick up that 3rd loop. If you're working to look at the back, it will just be this loop here. Make sure that you've yarned over your hook. Pick up the 3rd loop, bring your 3rd loop through, lots of 3rd loops today. We then yarn over, pull through just that first loop on our hook. So we still have 3 loops on our hook, but the first loop has a loop around it. And then this time we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So we are working the extended half double crochet into the 3rd loop. You see how it leaves the stitch that we haven't worked into closest towards us. So we yarn over, we're not working through the stitch, we're picking up that 3rd loop at the back, yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over, pull through just that first loop. There we are. Yarn over, pull through all 3. yarn over, tilt towards you to find that third loop, just so you know, because you can see there's more than one loop there. Let's show you from this angle. This is not the third loop, this is the third loop. It's in the middle of your stitch. It's really hard to show. So you've got this extra loop here, but it's the one that's parallel with your stitch. So this one kind of comes up out. It's this one that's on its own completely. We yarn over, bring our loop up, yarn over, pull through that first loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And we're just going to be repeating this all the way across. So we don't work through the loop, pick up that parallel loop to our stitch, bring our loop up, pull through the first loop only, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And we're just repeating that all the way across to our corner. Oops, go through too many, just pop that one back on. And each time we're working into that third loop of our stitch. One of those stitches that works better if you work quickly. You know, when you do puffs. So you can see that it's left like a ridge in front. So it's a bit like a rib stitch. And that brings us all the way to our corner. There should be no more loops to work into. And into that chain 2 corner space, we are just working 2 extended half double crochets. We pull through that first loop first and then through all 3. We do that 2 times. We then make our chain of 2 to maintain that corner space and then work a further 2 extended half double crochets. So far you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, your chain 2 and your next 2. I just love how it leaves those unworked fronts of our stitches just poking out at us. So again, we're going to be working into that back loop. So you can see that you've got your stitch here, and just at the back of it you have, it's not quite as parallel at this point. I move my hook out of the way, it becomes a little bit more obvious. So this is the back loop that we're going through on that first stitch. If I can find my needle. So we're going to insert our hook through there. So we yarn over the hook, insert under that third loop, bring our loop up, pull through the first loop, pull through all 3 loops. And we're just repeating that all the way across to our next corner. I would love to know how you're getting on working into these third loops, especially how much you're loving the stitch that's left behind, because I'm very passionate about working into the third loop. Really like how pretty it looks. So just continue to repeat that all the way across to the next corner. And obviously if it goes a bit awry, you can just work the stitch again, making sure you just pull through that first loop. And this stitch is just ever so slightly taller than a standard half double crochet, but it's not as tall as a double crochet. It's kind of like an in-between stitch. All the extended stitches are worked in the same way, just by working that first loop only and then completing your stitch as normal. Once you've reached your next corner, it really does become more obvious, those unworked loops of your stitches. We are going to work into the corner, working 2 extended half double crochets, a chain 2, and a further 2 extended half double crochets, that chain 2 corner space. And then we're ready to continue working through those third loops. I always take a moment just to find that first loop that we need to work into, which will be just behind your stitch and kind of parallel with your stitches. So continue to repeat that all the way across, working 1 extended half double crochet into the third loop, all the way to the corner. In the corner you're working 2 extended half double crochets, a chain 2 and a further 2 extended half double crochets, and just repeat that again for the final side, and I'll meet you once you've reached your final corner so that we can join our round and continue on to round 5. Just finished my final corner, just working my final extended half double crochets into that third loop of my stitch. That's 1, 2 and 3, and then we are ready to join to the top of the first extended half double crochet that we made. You see that mine's slanting down a little bit. There's my chain 1. It's going underneath that extended half double crochet, she says. There we go. And slip stitching to join. So at the end of round 4, you should be looking lovely and pretty like this, with lots of texture from working into that third loop. And you can see that these stitches are almost as large as the double crochets in round 2, but not quite. You should have a total stitch count of 60 extended half double crochets, and you should have 4 chain 2 corner space. Now round 5 is a repeat of round 2, so we're going to be working our US double crochets. We start with a chain of 2, working into the same space as that chain 2 because it doesn't count, working a US double crochet. Now what you will notice is your stitch is actually on the other side compared to where you'd normally find your stitch. So it's, instead of it being here, it's actually just to the side of it. And we're just going to be working 1, oops. So it's here, right above the post. And we're just going to be working 1 US double crochet into each stitch across to the corner. It's working 1 US double crochet into each stitch. When you get to your corner, don't forget to work into the last one because it's just to the other side of the stitch. So it's easy to get the stitch count wrong on this one. At this point, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 double crochets. In the corner, we are working 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and a further 2 double crochets into that chain 2 corner space. And then we're continuing on to work 1 double crochet into each stitch across. This time your stitch is not here next to your corner, it's not hidden, it's just to the side there. There's your first stitch, not where it is when you're working into a double crochet. So continue around working 1 US double crochet into each stitch across to your next corner. Into the corners we are working 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and a further 2 double crochets, and I'll meet you once you've worked your last corner to work those last few stitches together. We can join our round and continue on to the next round. Just finished my final corner and working the last few double crochets of this round. And then we are ready to join. There's my slip stitch, my chain 2, which I'm ignoring, and I'm joining to the top of the first stitch that we made in the round. There we are. So at the end of round 5, you should have a total stitch count of 76 double crochets, and round 6 is a repeat of round 3. So we're repeating rounds 2, 3, and 4 effectively. We're going to start with that chain of 1. And then in round 6, which we're working now, we're working to the same stitch as our chain 1 because it doesn't count, and we're working a half double crochet. We're working 1 half double crochet into each stitch across to the corner. There's quite a few of them to get over there, so I'll just get a few ahead. In our corner, we are working 2 half double crochets, a chain 2 to maintain that corner shape, and a further 2 half double crochets. Oops, 1 and 2. Just need to check because this is where that hidden stitch gets, just underneath that corner. And we're continuing around working 1 half double crochet into each stitch across, all the way over to our next corner where we're working those 2 half double crochets, a chain 2 and a further 2 half double crochets. So continue around working 1 half double crochet into each stitch across to your corner, work 2 half double crochet, chain 2, 2 half double crochets into that corner. We are effectively repeating round 3, and I'll meet you back once you've worked your final corner, ready for us to join our round and continue on to round 7 where we're working that special stitch again. Just working my last stitch of this round where we've been working these half double crochets into each stitch around. There's my slip stitch, my chain 1, so we're just going to join to the top of that first stitch that we made, and at the end, round 6, we should have a total stitch count of 92 half double crochets and still have our 4 chain 2 corner spaces. Going into round 7, we're working that extended half double crochet round again. Essentially, we're repeating round 4. So we start with our chain of 1 and we're working into those back loops. So if you're unsure of where that is, from the back, we're going to be going through the parallel line behind our stitch. From the front, you just can't see it, it's not there. So I always kind of try and fold the stitch out of the way. It's always hardest on the first one, and it's that loop there that we're going to go under. We're going to yarn over the hook first, pick up that 3rd loop. You should have your stitch at the front, yarn over, bring a loop up. We're doing that extended half double crochet. So we yarn over, just pull through that 1st loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. As I said, we're essentially repeating round 4 that we did previously, working those extended half double crochets that have that lovely little extra loop, and working into the 3rd loop of our stitch. It's just getting it through just that 1st loop. It's always a little bit tricky, especially for someone like me who likes to crochet very quickly. So this one just needs a little bit of time to take, and you want to make sure that you're working into that 3rd loop so that you're leaving those stitches at the front of your project. So we're going to have another line of beautiful stitches with our extended half double crochets worked behind them. So we're going to continue to work 1 extended half double crochet into the 3rd loop of each stitch to our 1st corner. Once we've worked all those stitches to our 1st corner, we are working 2 extended half double crochets. That's 1 and 2. We make our chain of 2, working a further 2 extended half double crochets into the same chain 2 corner space. Ooh, there we are. And then we're going back to working into our 3rd loops again. So there's my 3rd loop. You see you've got the stitch. This is the back loop of the stitch, and there's the 3rd loop. Just move that out of the way. Just there. So it almost looks parallel to your back loop. So you've got front loop, back loop, there's your 3rd loop. Make sure you've yarned over and then continue around. So we're going to repeat that, working 1 extended half double crochet into the 3rd loop of each stitch to the next corner. In the corner, we're working 2 extended half double crochets, a chain 2 and a further 2 extended half double crochets. And we're going to repeat that all the way around to our final corner, and then continue on working your extended half double crochets into the 3rd loop. It's quite a mouthful, that. And I'm going to meet you ready to join at the end of this round, and then we'll be working our final round and completing this beautiful granny square. I will see you shortly. I've just worked my final extended half double crochet into the back of that stitch. I've got 1 more to work, she says. Nearly missed it. There we are. You should have 108 extended half double crochets at the end of this round. We're going to ignore that chain 1 that we made and join to the 1st extended half double crochet that we made. We just got one final round to make, round 8, and we're going to start with a chain of 1. We're going to work into the same stitch as our chain 1, and this time we're just doing a round of US single crochets, the same as a UK double crochet. So a nice quick round. We're just working 1 US single crochet into each stitch around to the corner. It's really important that I've just done that. I just need to make sure we're not working into the space between these stitches, because I've just done that. So we need to make sure we just pick up those 2 loops, and there should, I don't know if you can see it, there should be a loop underneath. Otherwise you end up working in between the spaces, and that's a different stitch. So make sure you're inserting your hook to the stitch, not into the space in between them, because that will change your stitch count. And remember, that last one is just to the side of your stitch, otherwise you'll lose another stitch. So it looks like, because when we work into those doubles, it's on the other side. Into the corners, we are only working 1 single crochet, a chain 2, and 1 single crochet. But then you're going to continue on working 1 single crochet into each stitch around, remembering that our stitch is on the other side this time, so it isn't hidden under the corner. So we're going to continue to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, and in the corners we are working 1 single crochet, chain 2, and a further single crochet into each corner. So continue around, and I'm going to meet you when you've worked all your sides of your square ready to join, and then we can fasten off this project. I've just finished round 8. I've reached back to my slip stitch. There's my chain 1, and I could just slip stitch to join, but instead I'm not going to. I'm going to use the invisible join. Just going to snip my yarn and pull the yarn through that last stitch that we made. Going to pick up my darning needle, just thread my yarn onto there, and then I'm going to insert my needle from the front to the back through that stitch that we'd be joining to, pull quite tightly, and then I'm going to go back through the back loop only of that last stitch where that yarn is coming out, gently pull, because I don't want to change my stitch count, so that it almost disappears. You can't even see that there, and it gives us that lovely invisible join. And then I'm just going to secure it, ideally to a strand of the same colour. I can get my needle to go through. There we go. I'm going to make a little knot just to secure. I didn't pull that too tightly, I did a little bit. Bring that up a little bit. And there we are. It's a shame I've changed colour just on that last stitch. And that completes our fearful square. I can't tell you how much I love this square. I love working into the 3rd loop. It's a little bit tricky with those extended half double crochets, but it's most definitely worth it. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and of course share a picture with me over on social media using @CozyRosie UK, so I can see your progress in the In the Mood project. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next video.